Doctrine and Covenants 25 was given through the prophet Joseph Smith to his wife Emma in July 1830, shortly after her baptism and in the wake of recent heart-wrenching persecution. This is the only revelation recorded in the Doctrine and Covenants given to a woman. Here's the backstory. Emma Smith turned 26 years old the same month this revelation was received. She had married Joseph Smith nearly 3.5 years earlier, against the wishes of her parents. She had gone to the hill with Joseph the evening he first retrieved the plates from the angel Moroni, and she had acted as Joseph's first scribe during the Book of Mormon translation, becoming an important early eyewitness of the coming forth of the Lord's marvelous work in the latter days. Some 50 years after this experience, Emma still marveled at what she had witnessed. "My belief is that the Book of Mormon is of divine authenticity," she said. "I have not the slightest doubt of it. I am satisfied that no man could have dictated the writing of the manuscript unless he was inspired. For when acting as his scribe, he would dictate to me hour after hour, and when returning after meals or after interruptions, he could at once begin where he had left off, without either seeing the manuscript or having any portion of it read to him. This was an unusual thing for him to do. It would have been improbable that a learned man could do this, and for one so ignorant and unlearned as he was, it was simply impossible." As a firm believer in the Lord's latter-day work, Emma expressed her desire to be baptized about 2.5 months after the church's organization. So she and Joseph traveled up to Colesville, New York, where she planned to get baptized along with several other converts, including members of Joseph Knight Sr.'s family. On the afternoon of Saturday, June 26th, they dammed up a stream of water in order to create a pool large enough to perform the baptisms in the next day. "But," Joseph said, "during the night a mob collected and tore down our dam, which hindered us from attending to the baptism on the Sabbath. So early on Monday morning, we were on the alert, and before our enemies were aware of our proceedings, we had repaired the dam, and Emma, along with 12 other persons, were baptized by Oliver Cowdery. Before the baptismal service was concluded, however, the mob began again to collect, and they amounted to about 50 men. Emma and the rest promptly went to the Knight's home, but the mob followed them and surrounded the house of Mr. Knight, raging with anger and apparently determined to commit violence upon us. Some asked questions, others threatened us, so that we thought it wisdom to leave and to go to the house of Newell Knight. There also they followed us, and it was only by the exercise of great prudence on our part and reliance in our Heavenly Father that they were kept from laying violent hands upon us." A meeting was planned for that evening where Emma and the others baptized earlier that day would be confirmed members of the Church of Christ. This, however, would not be. As they were gathering together and preparing to start the meeting, Joseph was suddenly arrested by the local constable on the charge of being a disorderly person and of setting the country in an uproar by preaching the Book of Mormon. He was then hauled away. The next day he was acquitted in court, but before he left the courthouse he was arrested again by another constable who dragged him off and abused and insulted him throughout the night as he awaited his second trial the next day. In the midst of this difficulty, Joseph's lawyer, John S. Reed, stopped by to check on Emma. He said that her face was wet with tears and her very heartstrings were broken with grief. That next day, Joseph was again tried, again acquitted, and yet very nearly captured, tarred, and feathered by an awaiting mob nearby. Joseph said, "I was enabled to escape them and make my way in safety to my wife's sister's house, where I found my wife Emma awaiting with much anxiety the issue of those ungodly proceedings. And in company with her, I arrived next day in safety at my own house in Harmony, Pennsylvania." It was here at their home in Harmony, in the aftermath of this incredibly stressful time for them both, that Joseph received on Emma's behalf Doctrine and Covenants 25. So that's the backstory. Now let's look